That Halloween night of 2007 is burned into my memory like it happened yesterday, even though I've tried countless times to push it to the back of my mind. I was a freshman in high school, out trick-or-treating with my friends Ivan, Ryan, and Jesse. We had gone all out that year with a group costume Super Mario characters. I was Luigi, because I was the second tallest in the group. Ivan was Mario since he was short and stocky. Jesse, freakishly tall and skinny, made the perfect Luigi. And Ryan, being heavyset, had no choice but to be Wario. It was perfect, and at the start of the night we felt like the coolest group of kids out there. The only problem with our suburban neighborhood was that the houses weren't close together. That meant more walking, fewer doors per block, and a lot more effort to get our bags filled. Still, we had the determination to keep going until our pillowcases were completely stuffed. Hours passed. The street slowly emptied of younger kids, and many houses had stopped answering their doors. My feet were sore. My arms ached from carrying a bag that felt like it weighed 10 pounds. And yet we pressed on. At one house, we spotted a purple candy bucket sitting on the stoop, which instantly lifted our spirits. I hurried ahead, only to find it empty, and felt the disappointment hit like a brick. Just as I turned to tell the others, we all heard a knock on the window. A voice called out, "Wait!" The door opened and a man stepped out balding, maybe in his late 40s. He smiled and told us to come inside so he could get us more candy. My gut twisted right away. I said politely that we could just wait outside, but he insisted. "Nonsense. Come on in. I'll get you your candy," he said, stepping aside like he expected us to walk in. Ivan quickly cut him off with a firm, "It's all right. Come on, Dan. Let's go." I added a quick apology as we turned and left. The man didn't reply. He just stood there, staring as we walked away, which made my skin crawl. I felt a little guilty, but something about the way he looked at us screamed danger. At the time, I thought we had just dodged something bad without really knowing what. I wish the story ended there, but it didn't. We skipped the next few houses nearby, just to put some distance between us and that man's place, and continued on. Eventually, we found ourselves walking along the edge of the nature preserve, where the houses became scarce. The woods beside us were dense, dark, and unnervingly quiet. That's when Ryan suddenly stopped and said he heard movement in the trees. We laughed it off, telling him it had to be a raccoon or some other animal. That is what you do in real life. You cling to the logical explanation instead of assuming something sinister. But a little farther down, both Ivan and I heard it too. Footsteps. And when we stopped, the footsteps stopped. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. Ivan, trying to sound tough, yelled into the trees, threatening whoever was out there. But his voice was shaky, and we all knew he was bluffing. Then came the sharp crack of a twig, and panic set in. My body reacted before my brain could eyebolt it. Jesse and Ryan did the same. Ivan, who had been ready to fight, suddenly realized he was alone and quickly followed. As we sprinted down the dark street, the sound of multiple footsteps crashing through leaves and twigs echoed from the woods beside us. There was more than one person back there. Maybe two, maybe three. We tore around the corner onto Jesse's street and didn't stop running until we reached his backyard, slipping into his house through the back door. Our chests were heaving, hearts pounding, as we peeked out the living room window. Nothing. The woods were silent again. We were trying to calm ourselves, convincing each other it was all in our heads, when we heard the loud slam of Jesse's backyard gate. He immediately turned off the lights. Then, from the basement den, came the sound of a door clicking and banging shut. We froze. Jesse grabbed some kitchen knives, and we all agreed we had to check. He flicked on the back door light. The yard looked empty. No one was there. Just as relief began to creep in, the front door swung open. We screamed like animals, only to see Jesse's mom and sisters coming inside from a friend's party. Our fear melted instantly, replaced with embarrassed laughter. Jesse explained what happened, though he downplayed it so his family wouldn't panic. After a little while, Ivan and I decided to head home, and that was supposed to be the end of it. At 12:30 a.m., though, my phone buzzed with a text from Jesse. It read, "It wasn't my mom." My heart sank. I replied instantly, asking what he meant. He wrote back, "It wasn't my mom in the backyard." Confused and terrified, I asked again, "What do you mean?" After a long pause, he finally explained. His mom and sister swore they never went in the backyard that night. They hadn't come through the gate. They had gone straight to the front door when they got home. Jesse said he'd already checked the backyard from his upstairs deck, but whoever had been there was gone. His mom had called the police, who searched the area but found nothing. Jesse also told them about the man who tried luring us inside earlier in the night. Though nothing ever came of it, the police didn't find anyone, and there was no follow-up. Nothing else strange ever happened at Jesse's house after that Halloween, but the memory of the night never left me. Sometimes I replay it in my head, wondering what would have happened if we had stepped into the man's house. Sometimes I think about those footsteps in the woods, how they matched ours beat for beat, and the sound of the backyard gate slamming shut. Most of all, I can shake the way Jesse's text hit me like a bucket of ice water. It wasn't my mom. I still trick-or-treated for a couple more years after that, but I never felt safe again. And now, whenever I see kids running around on Halloween night, I smile on the outside. But deep down I remember that one wrong decision might have been the last one we ever made. That Halloween a few years later, when I was 18, should have been nothing more than a quiet night of walking my little brother Kevin, my cousin Mike, and a couple of their friends around the neighborhood. But it turned into one of the darkest and most haunting memories of my life. The kind that never loosens its grip on you no matter how much time passes. And the kind you replay at night wishing you could have done something more. I wasn't sulking about babysitting them, like most teenagers would have. I was actually fine with it, even enjoyed it a little, since I'd degrown out of the candy collecting phase. And just like being part of the Halloween energy, without the awkwardness of knocking on doors myself. So I made a deal with Kevin that he'd carry a smaller bag and drop a few pieces of candy in for me at each house so I didn't feel left out. But as the night stretched on and their bags got heavier, I found myself getting tired, wanting to turn back, while the kids kept insisting on hitting more houses until their sacks were stuffed to the top. And I finally decided I'd had enough, steering them back in the direction of Mike's house. That's when the white van appeared, pulling up alongside us like something out of every parent's nightmare. The driver lowering his passenger window and calling me over, asking if I could help him with something, and my first instinct was to brush him off, to say no. I've got kids with me, and keep moving. But he leaned out, insisting he just needed help, adjusting the passenger seat, claiming it was a two-person job and that he had a date coming up and wanted to fix it. And I can still remember the way his voice tried to sound casual but carried something forced, like he was pressing too hard to seem normal, and against the warning bells going off in my head. I agreed, telling him it had to be quick. He parked, and I opened the door, fumbling with the seat, trying to follow his instructions. Lift, now put it back down. Now lift again. And at first I thought the guy was just clueless, maybe even dumb, until the sharp screams of kids outside cut through the night like knives, and my stomach dropped because I instantly knew something was horribly wrong. I scrambled to get out of the van, nearly tripping over myself, and saw a man grabbing one of Kevin's friends, trying to drag him away. My body reacted before my brain could. I lunged and caught him by the throat, squeezing with every ounce of strength in me, while behind me the driver, the same man who lured me in with a seat trick, came barreling out of the van and shoved me hard to the ground, the air exploding out of my lungs as I hit the pavement. He went straight for Kevin, and for a split second the world felt like it slowed down. My little brother's eyes wide with terror, his arms flailing as the man reached for him. But then salvation came from the unlikeliest place. The owner of the house we were in front of stormed out, an older man in flannel with a rifle in his hands, and he didn't hesitate, firing a warning shot into the air that cracked through the night like thunder. And the two creeps bolted, scrambling back into their van and peeling off down the street before I could even regain my footing. Though I did try. I swear I did, my legs pumping, my hands outstretched as I ran after them. But 5 steps later they were gone, their taillights vanishing into the distance, leaving only the ringing echo of the gunshot and the terrified sobs of the kids behind me. I turned back, shaking, adrenaline crashing through my body, and saw Kevin safe, saw his friend clinging to him, saw my crying, and I don't think I've ever felt such relief and rage at the same time, gratitude pouring out of me for the old man who came to our rescue, who might have saved all of us that night. But at the same time, my blood boiled that I hadn't been able to grab one of those bastards, hadn't been able to stop them for good. We got the kids home. I tried to laugh it off for their sake, but inside I was a storm, and the next day my worst fears were confirmed when the news reported a 9-year-old boy had gone missing in our town. And though some might write it off as coincidence, I knew, deep in my gut, that it wasn't coincidence at all, that it was them, the men in the white van. And for the rest of my life, I'll carry the weight of knowing I came so close to stopping them that if I had just gotten a better grip, if I had just been faster, maybe that little boy wouldn't have vanished. Maybe his family wouldn't be living in torment, and that guilt gnaws at me still. Because Halloween is supposed to be about candy and costumes and fun. But for me, it will always carry the memory of headlights on a dark street, a white van pulling up, the sound of children screaming, and the knowledge that evil can appear in the most ordinary of disguises when you least expect it. Halloween in rural Pennsylvania was always different from what you see in movies or in busy towns. And that one year, when I went out trick-or-treating with my best friend Jordan and my buddy Chris, I learned in the worst way possible just how dark and terrifying the quiet woods could get. We lived far out where the houses were spread apart by stretches of forest, so wild kids in the city could fill their bags after just a few blocks. For us, it meant walking half an hour just to hit a handful of doors. But the trade-off was that people in our area gave more candy since they didn't get many trick-or-treaters. And that year started off normal enough with an old man at the first house giving us huge handfuls of Kit Kats and Snickers, and a kind woman at the next house piling more into our bags. But by the 6th house or so, our bags were already getting heavy, even though it had taken almost 2 hours to hit the many doors. And eventually we found ourselves wandering down a dirt road that led to some smaller houses and old trailer homes tucked deep in the woods, the kind of place where the air always felt still and the night seemed darker. 2 houses we tried didn't answer, and Chris was ready to turn around. But Jordan pushed us to try one more, which turned out to be a decision we'd regret forever. Because when we reached the last property, it looked eerie in a way that almost felt staged for Halloween. The entire front yard bathed in an orange glow from 4 torches lined up along the path, leading to the porch where a plastic candy bowl, decorated with little blackwood silhouettes, sat waiting. And for a second, we thought we'd lucked out until we saw it only had the lonely Tootsie Rolls left inside. Then noticed the note on the door, written in messy letters: "If there is no more candy, enter the back at your own risk for more," with an arrow pointing around the side of the house, and a creepy smiley face drawn underneath. Chris immediately said no way and wanted to head back, but Jordan's curiosity got the better of him, and I reluctantly followed because I didn't want to look like a coward. So the 3 of us walked around to the backyard, which opened into a small clearing surrounded by forest. One single torch stuck into the ground, flickering just enough light for us to see another note taped to the back door. And when we got close, we read the riddle: "If candy is what you desire, then you have to look closer to the fire," which to this day I can still hear in my head like some taunting whisper. And though Chris practically begged us to leave, Jordan started searching near the torch, laughing nervously like he was expecting to find some bucket hidden in the grass. But there was nothing there except the shed off in the corner and some scattered wood and tools. And that's when I noticed something that froze me in place: a cracked upstairs window, where I could clearly see someone staring down at us, eyes locked directly on me, until they suddenly pulled away and shut the blinds. My throat went dry as I told Jordan again we should go, but he was still walking around the yard, until my eyes caught another movement, this time from the shed where a shadow shifted and a face peeked out through the window, just barely visible in the torchlight. I grabbed Jordan's arm, practically yanking him toward the front, but he wasn't listening because he was staring into the tree line. And when I followed his gaze, I felt my stomach drop. Someone was stepping out from between the trees, slowly, deliberately. And at first Jordan laughed again, thinking it was part of the Halloween setup, until the figure came into the light wearing a grotesque mask that looked too real, too disturbing, and in his hand gleamed the unmistakable shape of a machete, the kind of weapon that made it very clear this wasn't a joke. Though for a second, even Chris chuckled nervously as if his brain refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. But then the masked figure broke into a run, charging straight at Jordan and swinging the blade, with a force that whooshed through the air, missing only because Jordan stumbled back. In shock, in that instant all doubt evaporated, and the three of us bolted for the front yard, adrenaline taking over, hearts slamming against our ribs, our footsteps pounding against the dirt as we ran faster than we ever had before, only to glimpse yet another figure blowing out the torches as if erasing the evidence, then turning and chasing after us. But somehow we outran them, tearing down the dirt road onto the pavement, not stopping until we collapsed in my yard, gasping for breath while Jordan bent over and vomited, whether from running or from realizing how close he had come to being hacked down. I'll never know. We told my parents immediately, and my dad called the police while we piled into his car, with the patrol following behind to show them the house. But when we got there, every trace of what we had seen was gone. The torches, the notes, the bowl, all vanished, and the place itself was completely abandoned. A vacant house that neighbors later said had been empty for months, which meant whoever had set up the twisted trap had done it deliberately in a place where no one would interfere. And though the police searched the property, they found nothing. No masked man, no shed stalker, no upstairs watcher, just shadows and silence. And they took our statements before driving off, leaving us shaken to the core. I've thought about that night for years, about the look of that mask, the glint of that blade, and the unsettling reality that there are people out there who lure kids with candy and notes just to play predator in the dark. And while most people think of Halloween as harmless fun, to me it will always carry the memory of an empty bowl on a torchlit stoop, eyes watching from a cracked window, and the sound of heavy footsteps chasing us down a dirt road. Proof that true horror doesn't live in ghost stories or costumes, but in the sick, twisted people hiding in plain sight.